closures stands at 81.8 billion shillings. That is the amount that has been lost due to closure in the quest to curb COVID-19. The proportion of annual revenue losses stands at 50%. So imagine doing a business and your losses just, your revenue just goes 50% down, which is quite significant. And the question surrounds also how sustainable, even as we recover, as the sector recovers, how sustainable it will be. The estimated losses across the conference tourism circuit. Now, there is leisure and conference tourism. This is majorly on meetings. It stands, the losses in regards to conference tourism stands at 163.56 billion shillings. And there's been concerted effort pre-COVID-19 to make sure that Nairobi and Kenya becomes a hub of conference tourism, seeing many, events hosted in the country. The number of loans restructured in the tourism sector stands at 347, and that is quite dismal. And later on, we shall be having a conversation in regards to the mitigation measures to make sure that how are the players in this sector surviving, even as we move post-recovery side. 3 billion shillings has been set aside for renovations. This is the catalyst to the sector. 2.5 billion has been allocated for tourism promotion, and 3.8 billion shillings has been allocated to the tourism fund. And this is to mitigate the challenges that have been there in the sector. Masai Mara is fully booked by local tourism for wildebeest migration, and 14,000 tourist arrivals this after the airs were opened, or flights resumed. Hotel bookings actually went up 25%, from 25% to 40% due to local bookings, and this is boosting local tourism. Hotels have 60% forward booking rates, and this is moving forward as we project towards recovery. And right now I'm joined by the CEO of Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, Mr. Mike Masharia. Mike, according to data that we saw earlier on, actually the MPC survey indicated that the average hotel bookings dropped from 24.2% in March to 2% in July. The question is, as we speak right now, where is this sector now? How's the performance?
Good afternoon, Noah. Thank you very much. At the moment, we have a mixed occupancy rates across the counties, and this is because of the profile of visitors. If you take Coast, for example, and that includes Mombasa, Diani, Kilifi, Lamu, some parts of Tana River and Taita Taveta, you'll find that we are doing some fairly good weekend business where locals come in on Friday, they stay for the weekend and leave on Monday. So you may find that in some instances you actually even full on the weekend, but then the occupancy drops on the weekday and you average out to around 30 to 40%. The same is happening in Masai Mara. The same is happening in Naivasha. To some extent, Kisumu is slowly picking up, but Nairobi still remains a huge challenge. And of course, we have other parts of the safari circuits, for example, Samburu, Shaba, the Buffalo Springs area, Meru. We've got Amboseli in Kajiado, which is also picking up slowly. And to some extent, Machakos, where we used to see a lot of business tourism going in, but now we are seeing just a bit of leisure. Mombasa and Nairobi has taken a very big hit. We are still not commanding good occupancy rates in Nairobi. We are probably doing around 15 to 20% at most. The only avenue for Nairobi hotels is now just the restaurants for the time being.
Okay. Mike, we've looked at the numbers in regards to job losses. 2.5 million people lost their jobs due to COVID-19 in the sector. Right now, as we see this recovery, do you have statistics of how many of those 2.5 million have been able to resume work?
I think at the last count, we had said 3.1 million jobs were at stake. So the number that's been given there at 2.5 million seems realistic. What we've done, and we've continued advising our investors, is not to fire people. So you find that, you recall we had this deal with the union where we had put people on paid leave, then unpaid leave, then on stipend. And that deal is still active. However, it's been 6 months now. And some of the staff are actually coming back and saying, hey, I can't stay in limbo forever. Why don't you pay me my dues? Then maybe I can go home and tend to my shamba or do other things and do other business. So we are finding a situation whereby the staff are losing patience. The business is stretched to the limit now, can no longer afford to keep people employed. And we've returned just a small complement of staff. Maybe about, from the 2.5 million, you could take about 15 to 20% who are back to full-time employment. The rest are still on rotation. We still have facilities that are closed, yet to open. Some had made a decision to open next year. Some are thinking of exiting the scene totally. So we are not seeing some very good prospects at the end of the road. But of course, the domestic numbers have been very encouraging, and we congratulate Kenyans for actually being bold enough to venture out and go into this into these tourism products that they would normally shy away from. And of course, we also have a good complement of Kenyans who would travel abroad and are not able to do that, and we are seeing those also traveling into Kenya. So generally, to answer your question, a maximum of 20% of the 2.5 million.
Okay.
But we are still hopeful that we'll be able to get them all back.
Yes, definitely. So 20%, and there is hope. Speaking of the sector in general, you know, COVID-19 has been highly disruptive. Looking at the sector from your observation, what do you think, has the pandemic pushed us to rethink the way we have done tourism traditionally in the country? And are there new trends coming up from the sector as we move towards recovery?
Yes, Noah, I mean, like we say, with every crisis creates an opportunity. We've just had a story there of a lady who didn't give up. Instead of divesting completely, went to a smaller facility and is now paying dividends. So that's just one example. When we did an initial pandemic study, it revealed that you will have to start with domestic tourism. And domestic at that point was local consumption. You remember we're still under lockdown for Nairobi and Mombasa. So what the study told us is, first you consume where you are. Then you start moving inter-county. Then we start accepting regional tourism from East Africa. And then tourism from the Africa region, and then back to international. So we are still at the point where, at the second step, where we've exploited the local consumption, and now we are going to domestic. We've worked very hard to reopen up East Africa. In fact, just last week, we had a meeting in Kigali, Rwanda, to jumpstart the East African region, to the regional tourism there. Then we need now to go into Africa. And this is the next frontier in tourism, because apart from the pandemic, there's a lot of other challenges that usually come with tourism. Travel advisories, certain weather conditions,
Yes.
certain illnesses like malaria and so on. And we find that Africans traveling to Africa do not really react too much to travel advice. But when we go to Europe and the US, then we find that there are certain restrictions of travel advisories that would make them not come. Okay. So in terms of innovation, it's not just about marketing to Africa. It's also about moving people within Africa. If you try to go to Mozambique, it would take you 5 days under normal circumstances, not even COVID circumstances. Trying to get to a country like Senegal
it is very difficult,
is a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, so we need to try and connect Africa into Africa. Then, yeah,
very
then move with the marketing communication game. Then the international market, still very, very important. 1.2 to 1.4 million visitors annually. Definitely cannot be ignored. Comes in with hard currency and assists in pushing the GDP.
Definitely. Yes. All right. So the future actually seems very bright. Thank you very much, Mike, for speaking to us. Always a pleasure. And this particular moment, we want to shift gears to telcos. Safaricom will continue to support the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises